back here on the Cover 3 podcast. We do enjoy spending some time on these Thursdays, hearing from you, the big old bag of mail. All right, here we go. Nick Saban has gotten bored with doing game day and wants to return to college coaching, but he does not want to be a head coach again. He'd rather just be a defensive coordinator. What team or what level would he immediately put over the edge and into the conversation for the national championship? If he went to a team like Ohio State or Jim Knowles or even Georgia, would that basically make them unstoppable? So what's basically the way that I'm reading this question, and feel free to interpret it however you like. What's the caliber? Like, what level of team, if Nick Saban shows up tomorrow and is the new defensive coordinator, would you automatically just upgrade that team? Like Ohio State and Georgia, the teams that he mentioned, those are national championship contenders without Nick Saban. So him showing up, like, yeah, I don't know if it makes them unstoppable or how much it changes them. I'm a little bit more interested in how far down we go and sort of what are those teams that Nick Saban as defensive coordinator could take over the top.
All right, so who are the teams out there who we think will be really good offensively? Also, is it immediately, or are we giving him a couple years to recruit? And are we assuming he's going to upgrade the defensive talent too?
There's the rub.
Yeah, I kind of like immediately because I do still think that Nick Saban, as much as his success was built on recruiting, I do still think Nick Saban is like one of the great football coaches. Like, you go give him, I mean, he didn't lead Michigan State to Big Ten titles, but he had Michigan State playing competitive football. So I'm going to go and LSU before Nick Saban's arrival was not competing for national championships like they were after he left. So I'm not going to give him a couple years to recruit. I want to find out Nick Saban as defensive coordinator. He could go make the most out of blank and help take them over the top.
I was going to say LSU might be one of them.
That's a great one.
Yeah.
Tennessee, teams that are kind of on the edge. And they've got, some of them have good coordinators. It's just, you're talking about Nick Saban.
Right.
Are we Ole Miss?
Ole Miss.
I had Ole Miss.
Okay, here's one. Do you think that Oregon gets absolutely pantsed by Ohio State if Saban's the DC?
No.
No, not a chance.
No. Yeah,
Oregon was kind of my answer.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, and I like Chris Hampton, and I think Tosh Lupoy is a good recruiter, but and obviously Lanning is a really good defensive coach. And Kirby trusted him to call that defense when he had never called a defense before in Georgia, right? So the guy's got some real ability, but Oregon was one I thought of pretty quickly.
He probably could have had a better game plan for Miami's secondary than Gentry did.
Miami's in the college football playoff last year if Nick Saban is their defensive coordinator.
I think it's like there's a number of teams. I think the takeaway is that it wouldn't go as deep as maybe you might assume just because it's Nick Saban. But if you already have talent and your defense wasn't great, I think those are the schools like we've been naming where Nick Saban would be an immediate impact. But like as Bud was alluding to earlier, without the talent, there's only so much any coach will be able to do as far as putting a team over the top.
Ooh. What about Clemson?
What about Oklahoma?
But they already have a defensive coach.
I think Miami. What about the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I like the Miami. Yeah. Miami's a good one. Clemson could be pretty good. I could rock that a little bit. Is there any Big 12 team?
God.
I think he would improve a lot of defenses. Right. I just don't know if he would improve them to the point where in the Big 12 they would go quote unquote over the top.
Well, when I think about Nick Saban from a coaching perspective, especially from the defensive coordinator, I go back to the 2023 SEC championship game. And if I'm a little bit off, I apologize, but I think I've still got this, where at the very beginning of the game, Georgia comes out and moves it right down the field on Alabama. I mean, and just kind of like had the Crimson Tide just out of alignment, out of position. And the way that Saban told the story, because you'll remember Alabama comes back and wins. They go and they make the college football playoff. They end up losing in overtime to Michigan. But the comeback started and Alabama started getting stops when Saban told the coaching staff, throw out everything we've done all week. Simplify this, strip everything down. Let's just let these guys go out there and make plays. And then Alabama, without having to overthink it, was just like, okay, let's just go out there and let's just play straight up heads up football. And sometimes, to me, coaching genius is being willing to make those calls and saying like, look, this is too much. They've got us. Let's strip this thing down and let's just go out there and play ball. And I like the simplification that sometimes comes with kind of casting your ego to the side, understanding that you're flushing hours of preparation and game planning because it's just not working. And that's what you need to be successful.
I've seen a lot of USC in the chat. I don't think USC would put over the top. I think he would improve their defense, but I don't think that USC is suddenly competing for the Big Ten last year if Nick Saban is their defensive coordinator. I think DeAnton Lynn's pretty good defensive coordinator. It's more of a talent problem there at this point.
Did you see Rob Ryan's press conference? It's worth
clips of it. You guys watch the whole thing?
I watched like the 3-minute clip. That's hilarious. He's like, it's like if there was a background that said the Laugh Factory or Comedy Store, like it was like a stand-up bit. He's telling stories. Sounds exactly like Rex. I mean, they sound identical, but it's pretty hilarious. It's worth going to check out. It's pretty funny.
So he's the new linebackers coach, right?
He's like an assistant head coach or something. I can't remember his actual title.
I will have to go check that. Was it this week, Danny?
It was like, yeah, I think it was yesterday.
Okay.
It just happened.
Rob Ryan is currently an assistant head coach for USC and defensive linebackers. So we were both right. Look at us.
Are there any that we are missing? I feel like we've got that nice, like that Ole Miss, that LSU, that Miami, like nobody, Oregon. I think that's sort of the tier that we'd be talking about in terms of how far deep it would go. Is there any team that you could stretch? I don't agree. I agree with y'all. I think USC is too far down, and I think that I see a Louisville. I don't think that he takes Louisville over the top. Though, I mean, certainly Jeff Brom coaching offense, Nick Saban coaching defense. That's chops through the roof. But I don't know if I would take that over the top.
What about North Carolina? Pair up two of the greatest minds ever. Put them together. I still need some offensive help and some talent help.
What about Alabama?
There we go. If Nick Saban came out of retirement to be the defensive coordinator at Alabama, he could take Alabama over the top.
Ooh, man. Do we think that they would have been better this year with him coaching?
Yes.
That defense. Or did he leave because he knew what he had coming back?
I think he left because he knew what he had coming back, and I think he knew the changing landscape is where your significant edge that he always had is now diminished.
That said, do you think Alabama loses to Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
If Saban's there.
Remember that young secondary getting cooked early in the season where we were talking about, like, guys are wide open and it's just the Alabama's opponents aren't hitting it. We kind of felt like Alabama's defense was a little bit of a ticking time bomb in that sense. I don't think that would, I tell you what, 2025 Natty Champs in the chat says, if Saban doesn't leave, they keep Caleb down. So that's a great reason to believe that Alabama would be better. He would probably have some more options, more ways to stop the option that Diego Pavia is carving you up with. Yeah. I mean, the Alabama defense did enough basically to beat Oklahoma. That was an Alabama offensive problem. I don't know how Nick Saban changes that.